In the world of fine wine, patience is not just a virtue, it is the entire foundation of value. You buy a bottle from a historic vineyard, you lay it down in the dark, and you wait. You wait for years, sometimes decades, for the harsh tannins to soften and the complex flavors to bloom. You learn that beautiful things take time to develop. Unfortunately, I had to learn that toxic things take time to develop too. My name is Vincent. I'm 39 years old, and I am one of the few master sommeliers in the world. I evaluate, buy, and curate wine for Michelin star restaurants. 7 years ago, I married Isabella. Isabella was a high-end interior designer. She loved modern art, minimalist furniture, and absolute perfection. My passion, however, was in the basement. Over a decade, I had built a custom temperature and humidity-controlled wine cellar. I invested my bonuses into securing extremely rare vintages, bottles of Grand Cru Burgundy and First Growth Bordeaux that survived world wars. My collection was appraised at just over $750,000. It was my retirement plan. Isabella hated the cellar. She called it a creepy, dusty cave and constantly complained that I was tying up our net worth in rotten grape juice. She didn't understand the history, and she certainly didn't respect the liquid inside, but she absolutely respected the price tag.
The shift in our marriage fermented slowly. Isabella started taking on wealthy private clients in the city. That's where she met Gideon. Gideon was a 40-something lifestyle investor. He wore velvet blazers, threw lavish dinner parties, and loved to pretend he was an aristocrat. He was exactly the kind of pretentious fraud I despised in the wine industry. A guy who couldn't tell the difference between a Merlot and a Malbec, but would only drink it if the bottle cost more than $1,000. Suddenly, Isabella was spending her weekends at Gideon's estate, claiming she was managing a massive remodel. Then the red flags started popping like cheap corks. First, the sudden interest in my cellar. After years of ignoring my collection, Isabella suddenly wanted to know exactly how the climate control system worked. She asked me how a bottle's value degrades if the temperature fluctuates. Second, the inventory. I keep a meticulous digital spreadsheet of my 1,500 bottles. I noticed someone had been accessing the file from Isabella's iPad, filtering the list to only show the top 50 most expensive bottles, the holy grail items worth $10,000 to $30,000 each. Third, the missing key. The physical brass key to the cellar door vanished from my study. Isabella claimed the housekeeper must have misplaced it. I am a man who notices when a single drop of wine tastes off. My marriage was deeply corked, and I needed to find the source of the rot.
Because wine is highly sensitive to the environment, I have a hidden battery-operated hygrometer in the cellar that alerts my phone if the temperature shifts by even half a degree. It also has a tiny audio sensor to monitor the hum of the compressor. One afternoon, while I was supposedly at a tasting downtown, my phone alerted me. The cellar door had been opened. I pulled over my car, opened the app, and tapped into the live audio feed. I heard the clinking of glass, and I heard Isabella and Gideon. They weren't just having an affair, they were shopping in my life's work. Gideon was saying, "The buyer in New York is confirmed. He's a tech billionaire, completely obsessed with post-war Bordeaux. He agreed to pay $500,000 in cash for the 50 bottles on your list. No auction house, no paper trail." Isabella replied, "And you're sure Vincent won't be able to trace it?" Gideon laughed. "Trace what? When he leaves for his vineyard tour in France next week, we pack the 50 bottles into my climate-controlled van. Then you just unplug his cellar's cooling unit and turn on a space heater. When he gets back, the entire room will be 90 degrees. You tell him the compressor failed while he was gone and the wine boiled. He claims the insurance, we take the $500,000 in cash, and I'll be waiting for you in Monaco." I sat in my car,
my hands gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. My wife was planning to steal $500,000 of liquid history, intentionally destroy the rest of my priceless collection with a space heater, and run off with a fake aristocrat.
If you want to poison a wine thief, you serve them the perfect glass. I didn't call the police. Wine theft is notoriously difficult to prosecute until the transaction actually happens. And if I confronted her now, she would just deny it and divorce me, trying to take half the collection legally. I needed them to complete the sale. I drove home. When Isabella came upstairs, I smiled, kissed her cheek, and told her I couldn't wait for my trip to France. The next day, while she was at work, I went into my cellar. As a master sommelier, I know exactly how counterfeiters operate, which means I know exactly how to replicate their methods. I carefully removed the 50 priceless bottles, the 1945 Mouton Rothschilds, the 1990 Domaine de la Romanée Conti. Using specialized steam equipment and razor blades, I flawlessly peeled the original historic labels off the bottles. I moved the real, now naked bottles to a secure bonded wine storage facility across town. Then, I bought 50 empty, period-correct antique glass bottles. I went to the cheapest supermarket in the city and bought a case of 2-buck Chuck, the absolute worst mass-produced $3 red wine on the market. But I didn't just fill the antique bottles with cheap wine. I added a heavy splash of balsamic vinegar and a pinch of sulfur to every single one. I meticulously glued the authentic priceless labels onto the fake bottles. I used a professional corking machine to insert vintage stamped corks and sealed them with authentic aged wax. They looked like $500,000. They tasted like a rotting salad. I put them exactly where Isabella expected them to be, packed my bags, and flew to France. While I was drinking espresso in Bordeaux, I was also busy on the phone with my attorney in the States. Selling counterfeit vintage wine isn't just a minor theft. In the United States, it falls under the jurisdiction of the FBI's Art Crime Team. It is felony wire fraud and interstate commerce fraud. I gave my lawyer the security audio of Isabella and Gideon plotting to fake the insurance claim. My lawyer proactively contacted my insurance provider, letting them know my wife was planning to intentionally sabotage the cellar compressor. We set up a hidden camera in the basement. On Tuesday, my security app pinged. Through the hidden camera, I watched from 4,000 miles away as Isabella and Gideon carried my 50 carefully crafted bottles of supermarket vinegar out of my basement. Before they left, Isabella walked over to the $15,000 commercial cooling unit. She unplugged it from the wall, smiled, and plugged in a cheap red ceramic space heater, pointing it directly at the remaining wine racks. She walked out and locked the door. 10 minutes later, a specialized HVAC team I had hired on standby quietly entered the house through the garage, unplugged her space heater, plugged the cellar back in, and secured my remaining collection. Isabella and Gideon were currently driving to New York in a climate-controlled van, treating $150 worth of vinegar like it was the Mona Lisa.
Gideon had arranged to meet the tech billionaire at his private penthouse in Manhattan to complete the $500,000 cash transaction. What Gideon didn't know is that men who spend $500,000 on wine do not just hand over a briefcase and say thank you, they authenticate. According to the police report and the buyer's testimony, Gideon and Isabella proudly presented the 50 bottles on a massive mahogany table. The billionaire looked at the pristine labels. He was thrilled. But then he pulled out an Osso wine opener. "Before I wire the funds," the billionaire said, "we are going to open one of the 1982 Lafittes. If it's as pristine as the label suggests, we toast to a good deal. If it's corked, we adjust the price." Gideon panicked, but he couldn't say no. The billionaire carefully extracted the cork. He poured a small amount of the dark red liquid into a crystal Riedel glass. He swirled it. He put his nose to the glass. He immediately gagged. He took a tiny sip, spat it directly onto his own expensive rug, and started coughing violently. The room smelled like sulfur and rotting apples. "What the hell is this?" the billionaire roared. He grabbed the bottle, looked at the cork, and realized it wasn't a genuine Chateau stamp. Gideon started stammering, swearing it was authentic. Isabella looked completely terrified. The billionaire didn't negotiate. He picked up his phone and called his private security, who locked the penthouse doors. Then he called the FBI. "I have 2 people in my home attempting to sell me $500,000 in counterfeit antiquities," he told the dispatcher.
The fallout was the most spectacular hangover in the history of wine. The FBI arrived and seized the bottles. A quick lab test confirmed that the priceless wine was nothing more than cheap table wine and vinegar. Because Gideon was the one facilitating the sale across state lines, he was arrested for federal wire fraud and attempting to sell counterfeit goods. When the FBI interrogated him, he immediately cracked and threw Isabella under the bus, claiming she was the mastermind who stole them from her husband. Isabella was arrested as an accomplice. She called me from a holding cell in New York, completely hysterical. "Vincent, please! Gideon tried to sell fake wine and they arrested us! You have to bail me out!" she screamed into the phone. "Fake wine?" I said smoothly, sitting in a beautiful chateau in France. "That's impossible, Isabella. I saw you carry them out of the cellar on the hidden camera, right before you plugged in the space heater to commit insurance fraud." The silence on the line was absolute perfection. "The real bottles are in a bank vault," I continued. "Enjoy the vinegar. My lawyer will be sending the divorce papers to your cell block." I hung up.
It's been almost 3 years since that tasting in New York. Gideon's reputation as a high society investor was completely obliterated. He was convicted of federal fraud and sentenced to 4 years in a minimum security prison. The billionaire also sued him in civil court, bankrupting him. Isabella avoided jail time by pleading guilty to insurance fraud and testifying against Gideon, but she is a convicted felon. She lost her interior design business, and because of her documented attempt to destroy marital assets with the space heater, the divorce judge awarded me 100% of the house and the entire wine collection. She walked away with literally nothing. I still have the collection. In fact, to celebrate the finalization of the divorce, I opened the real bottle of the 1982 Lafite. It tasted absolutely flawless. If there is a lesson to be learned here, it's this. True value is found on the inside, not on the label. If your partner only cares about your price tag and tries to sell you out to the highest bidder, don't cause a scene. Let them pack the boxes. Let them make the pitch. Just make sure that when it comes time for the tasting, you leave a very bitter taste in their mouth. Thanks for listening to my story. If you enjoyed this one, drop a like, hit subscribe, and let me know in the comments, what's the worst scam someone has ever tried to pull on you? Stay sharp and always inspect the cork.